section of the day where we will learn all about planning your exterior renovation, how to spot quality work, and choose the right contractor from Daniel Mastery at AM Group Exteriors. At AM Group Exteriors, Daniel focuses on new business development with a strong emphasis on client education, making a significant impact on the exterior renovations industry. As the sales operations manager, he develops and conducts training for a sales team that not only resonates with clients, but also cultivates an informed customer base in a consultative sales environment. Daniel's collaborations have not only enhanced market penetration, but also established AM Exteriors as a thought leader in the industry. Please join me in welcoming Daniel.
Sorry, it's this one right. Hey, it's this one right here.
Forward, back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. So when I was asked to put this together, I had a couple topics that I was considering for this, but one that came to mind was one that I've heard from a lot of different customers, and it was actually sparked by a recent customer of mine. And that customer had said to me, Dan, I'm not sure how to find someone that can help me with a lot of my different renovations. We've tried the friends and family thing, we've tried asking our neighbors, we've tried going online, and each time we've had an issue when it's come to choosing a contractor. And it wasn't just issues in terms of the job taking too long, but what they explained to me was that it was issues related to the job itself in terms of how it performed or functioned. And so I thought that a great topic to cover at this home show, especially as everyone gets ready for their spring renovations, was how to spot quality workmanship as well as being able to choose the right contractor. And a bit of background on myself is I've been in this industry for 16 plus years. And in my time, I went from working on the tools and exterior remodeling all the way up into working as a salesperson, into training salespeople to consult on these types of renovations. And in my time, I've had about over 1,000 different customers that I've consulted with, and a lot of them share a lot of these same concerns. How do they find the right person to choose? Especially when it comes to roofing, windows, insulation, siding, soffit fascia, eaves trough. When it comes to those services in Ontario, those are not a certified trade. Those are a trade that, unfortunately, oftentimes anybody off the street can get into, start a business, and try to make a name for themselves in. And if you look online and you look at what a lot of the guidelines say when you search how to choose the right contractor, even if you look at the Government of Canada's website, they basically give the same advice that my customer ended up falling victim to, unfortunately, by trying to ask for referrals, and unfortunately those referrals fell short of delivering on what they were trying to accomplish. And this is intensified by the fact that these are not licensed trades. These aren't a red seal trade, and a red seal trade is recognized by our government. It's recognized by our different academic organizations as someone who knows what they're doing. But unfortunately, that process does not exist for a lot of remodeling trades. So ultimately, it becomes a very large gamble for customers. It becomes a gamble in them trying to figure out, do they do quality work? Are these people trustworthy? Are they reliable? And is there value in what they're offering? And oftentimes, customers take that gamble and hope for the best. And these main concerns that I have highlighted here aren't just concerns that I threw together into this to try to emphasize this. These actually come from a lot of consumer surveys. One of them being Angie's List, which is out of the States, and they look at how to vet the contractors and the contractor selection process. And they asked customers, what are your top concerns when it comes to choosing a contractor? And these tended to be at the top of that list. But unfortunately, when you're in Ontario, these are things that there's no vetting process typically for choosing that right contractor for your home. So one of the biggest things and the biggest themes of what I want to talk about is how you as a consumer can protect yourself, how you as a consumer can ensure that you're getting some of these questions or all of these questions answered. And the simplest message I'm going to start with here is when it comes to choosing a contractor and trying to figure out if they do quality work, don't take their word for it. I can't tell you how many times a contractor will say, I do great work, I do great jobs, I'm the best at my craft. But oftentimes that's lip service. Oftentimes I've talked to customers who have had projects done by those types of contractors and were in there quoting to redo the job because of those issues. So where I want to emphasize, and one of the things that I want to really highlight, is instead of taking their word for it, set an expectation that they're going to prove what they say. And that proof, in my opinion, starts at the very phone call that you make and you get them at your house. Whether it's a roofing project, a window project, insulation project, siding project. Oftentimes, when it comes to quoting that type of job, typically customers will just get sometimes a mailbox quotation. Typically, they might get a quick 10-minute conversation with that contractor, and that's about the extent of their quoting process. Whereas what a good contractor should do is prove why they're quoting what they're quoting. I've had many customers who thought they needed a brand new roof, but then I get up there and inspect it and they just needed a couple nails replaced. I've had many customers who thought they needed insulation work done, but then I pop up in their attic space and I had nothing to do with their insulation. So really one of the things you should ask yourself is, are they a fit for my project? And can they prove if they're a fit for my project? So to give you an example, this is me inspecting a roof space. Now this customer's never been up on their roof. I don't expect them to get up on their roof. But they were having some leaks in this area of their home. So instead of me just telling them that I agree we need to replace your roof, I used a moisture meter to see what was going on. They also had issues with shingles blowing off. They weren't sure if it was their roof or someone else's. So what I ended up doing was going up there and taking a look and proving to them that this is going to get worse if we don't act sooner than later. Another circumstance where I commonly see people overlook some important key things are even in looking inside an attic space. If there aren't certain things addressed, you can have bigger issues than just an insulation top-up like you're seeing here. Or if it comes down to even looking at eaves trough systems. Right? In this circumstance, this wasn't just an eaves trough replacement. This was eaves trough plus looking at their fascia boards. But this all came down to the inspection and proving in the inspection that there was something going on beyond what they thought was happening. Because the reason that some of these systems fail isn't just because it's old, it's because other unaddressed factors were involved in that system or on that project. So one of the things that that a good contractor should prove in their inspection is, are there any unknowns you should be aware of? Is it more than just a roof? Is there plywood that needs to be replaced? Is there structural issues? If there's an insulation problem, does there need to be added ventilation? Is there more to this scope than just initially assumed? And this isn't to try to say, let's just get more out of the job. What it is to do is to make sure that if that job gets done, it's done right and you don't have to worry about it again. They should also be able to prove if they're a fit. So do you even benefit from their service? Do you just need an insulation top-up, or does it have to get removed? Do you even need to get your roof done at all? Or is it just a repair? Oftentimes, a lot of contractors operate off of throwing quotes in a mailbox and hoping that they get the work. But does that always benefit the consumer? Oftentimes, the answer is no. So to kind of give you a bit of context where this is coming from, I had a customer last year. Her name is Pat. I met her in April. And Pat had called us for a full replacement on her roof. She called us for a quote to get this redone. And I show up and Pat's visibly a little anxious about the project. And out of the gate, she's like, look, Dan, I had two guys come in. One guy told me I should replace this for $6,000. Another guy told me I need to spend $7,000 to replace it because my roof's leaking. And I'm looking at it from the ground, and I haven't inspected it yet, but I'm looking at it from the ground, and it looks like it's in good enough shape that I'm thinking to myself, she probably doesn't need her roof replaced, but I could be wrong. So I go up on her roof system, and I do typically a full assessment, but the first thing I did in this case where the roof looked like it was in good shape was I assessed, was the matting failing? Was there something wrong with the shingles that I couldn't visibly see? So I used a microscope to see if the shingles were cracking in any weird spots or breaking down in some of the areas near the leak. And then I also went around on the roof system to see if there was unusual moisture readings that were leading to leaks that I might not have spotted when I used my microscope. And I did this to try to see, was the roof failing or not? And what it turned out was the reason her roof was leaking was because of these 5 nail heads. And all this was not a $7,000 or $6,000 roof replacement. This turned into being essentially just a couple $100 of replacing some nails and putting some screws in place to ensure it didn't happen again. And this is why I recommend as a consumer that you always look at what they're actually quoting, why they're quoting it, and getting them to prove it before you actually move ahead with any project. But if they do that, can they also prove their solution? Can they show you the latest in industry installation guidelines? Can they show you what the alternatives are? Can they show you what materials need to be used to solve those problems? Because if they can't, that's a mark of a contractor who's most likely not versed or skilled enough in being able to handle the issues that are in front of them. So, one of the other things, let's say they do a good job of inspecting, they prove it either by videos, pictures, let's say that they do a good job of even explaining what that solution looks like. The other questions you need to ask yourself are they actually an established business? How long have they been doing this? The problem with roofing, windows, doors, insulation, siding, soffit, fascia, eaves, trough, is that these are not businesses that you need any certification. So it's not uncommon that these companies may operate out of the back of their shed or their home, and if there's ever issues with your job, they may just disappear tomorrow. So have they been around long enough to actually service what they're promising? Are they accredited? Now, this is a little different than certified. What I mean by this is, do they have good standing with organizations like the Better Business Bureau? The reason I bring this up is because, yes, you can have a small outfit who's barely been doing this, who might have decent online reviews, but the BBB is a voice for the consumer, right? And some of the larger companies like my own, they are also have good standing with the BBB, and you have to consider if they've been around a long time, they've done a lot of work, that's a lot of potential complaints that could sink them. Another thing as well, do they have a physical office? And the reason I bring this up is because if that business does not have a physical office, it means that they probably don't have as strong of ties to the area they're servicing as they should. And this is what I mean. I was joking around about this the other day, but if I decided that I wanted to go start an insulation or a roofing business tomorrow, no joke, I could start it in about an hour. I could go on the Government of Canada website, register a business, and I now have an insulation company. The problem with that model is if I say it gets too much, or it's too hard, or it's too up and down for me to handle, I can just pack up shop and you'll never hear from me again. I changed my phone number. So if they have a physical office, that's something to consider, because that means that they're a lot less likely to be able to hide or change their phone number or disappear. Another thing as well, when it comes to choosing the right contractor, this is something that I think is heavily underrated because it's so overused. is a strong company is typically going to have a strong warranty. And what I mean by that is that warranty is only as strong as the company that is actually offering it. During COVID-19, we saw more construction companies pop up than we've ever seen. And some of those companies were trying to offer these insane warranties, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, offered directly by them. The problem with that is those warranties, they mean nothing. Those companies aren't in existence anymore. So if there's not a strong company that's actually able to survive past a couple years, then it means that your warranty is pretty much useless. But another strong thing to look for with a company that's worth investing in is, do the manufacturers back them? And I don't mean back them in the way that they give them a couple free t-shirts. I mean back them in the way that if that company went under tomorrow, would that manufacturer still back up the work that was done? Because let's be realistic, these companies or these larger businesses like an Owens Corning aren't going to be putting their name on a company that they think is a large risk. They're only going to put that on a company that they believe to be a sure thing. And so the other thing to consider are their insurances. And this is something I encourage everybody to do if they're getting any contractor to work on their home. Not just get them to provide proof of insurances, take a couple minutes, go on the WSIB website and search up that company. See if they have clearance certificates. And then when they show up to your job site, can they provide additional clearance certificates? Because these things do expire quarterly. And another very important thing that I think is heavily underrated is, can that company provide proper references for their business? And I'm not just talking generalized references, I'm talking people who've done work from a year ago, a couple years ago, a decade ago. Can they provide that? Because one of the most important things to consider isn't just about getting the work done, it's what happens if there is a problem. And I would encourage you to ask those references, was there an issue, and what did they do to make this right when it came to getting that job done? And one of the most top of mind things that this is going to lead to is the price point. And one thing that I talk about a lot when I'm with customers is sometimes the cheapest option or the cheapest price is usually related to the company who lacks a lot of the things such as the transparency of how they're going to fix the issue, or the actual insurances necessary to safely and properly do the job, or the references to actually prove that they did a good job in the first place. And oftentimes that can lead to being the most expensive thing in this system. But another thing to consider is, when it comes down to it, just because they're more expensive, do they offer prices that fit your needs? Does that company offer price points that can tailor towards what you're trying to accomplish? And do they offer multiple price points as well? Do they offer a good, better, best? And one other final telltale sign of a good contractor is, can they offer multiple ways to pay or financing? What I mean by that is, it's not just the principle of financing itself, because some people choose to pay by credit card, EFT. It doesn't necessarily matter, but the reason that financing is important is because only companies who have some level of stability are even able to offer it. So if a company cannot offer financing, that is also a red flag to consider when it comes to choosing the right contractor for your job. So ultimately, the biggest message I want everyone to take away from this is that, can this contractor prove what they say? And don't take their word for it. Can they prove how they're going to solve your issues? Can they prove what your issues are? Can they prove that they have the correct insurances? Can they also prove how they're going to solve your problems? So that's everything I have. I really do appreciate everybody. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to be cruising around in this area or at my booth at the AM Group Exteriors booth. Thank you very much.